Agwiniusha is Mhacha, Natalie Ihe is Stuart Harvey Celtic Junction Arts Center in Minnesota. Now you can see my Irish is very poor, but I'm working hard on it. And I want to say, I think I see this whole piece being here for the Irish Echo is to find what are our problems and how do we get the solutions? And that's by asking the right questions. So first of all, have you had your third cup of coffee? And if not, do you need something? I'm a dancing teacher, put one leg out. You can give a little twist on one ankle, twist on the other ankle, have a little movement around. But I won't keep you long. I like to talk, but I'll also talk fast. So problems and solutions. Right now what we're talking about is partnerships. Martine was very kind to choose us to present Best in Show, our Transatlantic partnership. But I have to talk about how we got there. This is a problem that's coming up in multiple places from multiple points. It was amazing to hear Jim Frawley. He just talked about we have this varied Irish experience, all these opinions. It's hard to find common ground, right? Rob Walsh, you talked about getting lost. You know, when we turn inward, how do we look outward? Catherine Flood, trying to take this Project Children's Story and find unity. A lot of our problems and our solutions really come from asking the critical questions. And right now, what we're here for is how do we forge the connections and the partnerships? So we know we're at a critical point, especially in immigration. And one of my challenges, I think that I would say here today, and this is the reflection I gave when I was invited to come to the Irish Echo, is what are we here for? What are you here for? I mean, besides getting to shake Martine's hand, which we all want to do every day because he's such a charming, lovely guy. We're here actually to make those connections and partnerships and to figure out better who we are so that we could figure out how we're serving the larger world. So we turn inward to go outward. And right now, if you look at what we've come through, none of us want to say these words anymore, but there is nothing like an international pandemic to really show us how deeply connected we are, whether we like it or not. And that could be different neighborhoods, it could be different boroughs, it could be different perspectives, it could be different families, it could be different colors of skin. It can be so many things. So that how do we solve the partnerships? How do we make the connections and go forward? So a little bit about myself. My background is theater. There is no stronger version of disparate egos coming together and trying to figure out how to make something outside themselves together. You take the director, you take the designers, you take the actors, you take the people who run the buildings, and it takes a lot of creativity to do that, but when the creativity comes from ego, it can be quite difficult. So we look at what we do together. Look at the person you're sitting next to. There is a wealth of knowledge, and there is a wealth of information, a depth of experience that you are sitting with in this room. And I think our challenge is to actually look around and find that together. What we did is that with our own community. So we probably had no business starting an Irish Cultural Center. It was the craziest thing I think we've ever done. But what St. Paul, which is a very deeply Irish place, did is it had all these small factions. I mean, here I'm sitting in New York. You guys know about that, right? All these different perspectives, different identities, different small groups, and they had no common understanding. They had no common home. What we came in is we started to figure out what is our common ground, how can we work together, and how can we be stronger together and opposed to weak individually. And the first thing we started with was connecting. So we connected with the music schools, with the dance schools. Liam talked about the same kind of thing in San Francisco and tried to bring everybody together. We started at our Irish community level. We moved into our neighborhood level. We work with our food groups. We're, as you probably know, part of the Twin Cities. Minneapolis and St. Paul is the source of the George Floyd murder and riots. And this is something that we've had to look at very carefully. So we're working with the neighborhood to try and do rescue a food desert, trying to do food reckoning. We started looking at our value systems and who we are and who we want to be in the world. Moving on to national connections. That's how we're here. We work with Nick now. Of course, we work closely with our consulate. But when it came to international partnerships, it's something that by looking inwards, it came to us. We started to look at what are our values, our programs that we run. It started really with fun, concerts. Everybody likes to have a good time. We've already established that with our panel. We moved on to education, history with our library, and then also outreach. And it is Armagh, our twin sister city, that really found us. And they came to us to say, we see that you have the programs, we see that you have the values. We think we can bring something bigger and better to the table together. So we did. And by looking at ourselves, what are we doing as Irish community centers? It can actually help us solve some of these problems that we're looking at right now. One of our big program foundations just in the last couple of years has been our social justice series. And that is something they really saw and wanted to explore with us. As you're probably aware, there was a gift of the Choctaw Nation many years ago during the Great Hunger, which we just heard about. All of these things are connected, where the Choctaw Nation gave $170 to the Irish famine. And they had just recently, within the previous decade, had their own trail of tears. But they reached deep into their pockets and they actually gave from the depth of their souls. That's something that the Irish government was looking at recognizing. So Armagh and Celtic Junction Arts Centre decided that what we would actually start by doing is making a partnership. So that's the question, isn't it? How do we do that? We have to find who we are. We have to find our common ground, and then we have to figure out how to project those values into the rest of the world. And by doing that, we created a series called Mhacha. And if you are a Gaeilgeoir, you would know Aonach being soul and Carja being friends. That is the foundation on which we based this international partnership. And now what we felt was really important to look at our connection with language, with our history, with a deep, deep meaning and beautiful connection to the native peoples from the area, which connects with language. And by doing that, we actually then got to know ourselves better and our community. Connected us deeply with not Choctaw, but the Ojibwe, the Dakota communities. We've been exploring so many beautiful subjects with Armagh. And I have a little video that I'm going to show to you that just give a little sample of what we did in our Aonach Carja program.
I think language revitalization for me is about life itself. A country without its tongue or its language is without its soul.
Language is essential to nationhood.
That was super duper big news, so if you guys didn't recognize the name, he was the president of Northern Ireland at the time they were going through the whole revolution, and he was here, he was adopted at this very reservation by our old timers, and now we're hosting some of his descendants here in our community almost 100 years later, over 100 years later.
Indeed was inspired by the $170 contribution that the Choctaw Nation made to our nation, the Irish nation.
I heard it was Irish soldiers riding Choctaw from their lands, who spoke of the Irish hunger, Choctaw sought to understand.
And this song just about sums up the whole spirit and the whole feeling of the whole week, just making friends, and we'll meet again, hopefully. When first we met, complete awkward strangers, we did not know we'd become good friends. But how soon we came to know each other, and now I know we will meet again.
We are deeply honored to be recognized here at the Irish Echo, and we have to send our thanks out to the Lakudere Ojibwe tribe, with whom we have made great friends and presented them now twice, both virtually and in person. That's the amazing music and dance that you heard right out of Hayward, Wisconsin, just our neighbors across the border. Many thanks to Raymond O'Curon, who is now the director of Galen, and also Aonach, and all of the 7 people that came from Armagh to visit us and to do this program, dance and music and song and connection with our native peoples, to really think about our language, our land, who we are to ourselves, and who we want to be in the world. Thank you, everybody.